Welcome to Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
As the wise have said, the ocean is great because it accepts all rivers. Nations will be great if they accept all ideas. They jettison the ones that are impracticable and use the ones that are practicable. And that is my message to my friends in leadership in the great country of Zambia, the country of Kenneth Kaunda and Levi Patrick Mwanawasa. In this quest for African unity, those who think that is going to be a walk in the park are misguided. There are going to be difficult moments. There are going to be painful moments. But the wisdom of the ages is that there is no gain without pain. So some of us who have now started tasting the pain of rejection at countries' borders are beginning to experience firsthand what our forebears did. Samora Machel was right. Aluta continua. You see, when you have statements being made by senior government officials, which statements are uncoordinated and contradictory, it means that truth is being sacrificed. I've visited Zambia on numerous occasions. I did not need any procedure to be followed. What I required was my passport and a return air ticket. And when I entered the airport, I was welcomed by Zambian officials, and I delivered my lecture and came back home. What procedure was I required to follow? Those who invited me from the University invited me to preside over a function which was a graduation, and the evening before to deliver a lecture. To say that I did not follow procedure is as amusing as it is preposterous. Really, I have nothing negative to say. I believe that every government has its reason. I believe that what they did is inexcusable, particularly at this time when we are talking about Africa Agenda 2063. And Africa Agenda 2063 is meant to create an environment where Africans enjoy free movement across the continent. And if this continent is to grow on the basis of ideas and on the basis of scrutiny of ideas and interaction of peoples, to deny an African entry into Zambia is the most unfortunate thing that any government can do, because it creates a mountain out of a molehill. Had I been allowed into Zambia, I would have delivered my lecture perhaps without the glare of publicity. What has happened now is that something that was purely innocuous, it is receiving a disproportionate amount of publicity. And I believe that the government, with the help of hindsight, must know that what they did was without basis, without wisdom, and without reason. And I believe that they will, in future, treat me and others differently. I'm now wondering to myself, if I wanted to have a holiday at the Mosi-Otunya Falls, will I be denied entry at Livingston? This is the question that is lingering in my mind. I hope that the government of Zambia will not allow me to visit the Mosi-Otunya Falls. You know, and this was going to be my thesis during the presentation, that Africa has been victimized in many ways. Africans were enslaved. I would have commenced my testimony, and it suffered the vagaries of slavery. Africa was colonized, and after colonization, the specter of neo-colonization came about. And there is a sense in which the founding fathers of Africa, and I would have mentioned Kwame Nkrumah, I would have mentioned Julius Kambarage Nyerere, I would have mentioned Kenneth Kaunda, were clear in their minds that the entire struggle for independence was to liberate ourselves and to liberate our minds, to decolonize our minds. And therefore I would have said that in this day and age, when China, as an emerging power, has exaggerated appetite for resources. When we engage with her, we must define what we want, because the Chinese, to their credit, have already defined what they want. They have appetite for minerals. They have appetite for land. They have appetite for opportunities which would otherwise go to young Africans. And that therefore, when we engage with them, we must ask ourselves, are we engaging for our benefit? The thing that we call trade, is it trade? Is Zambia capable of negotiating with China? I would have said that going forward, Africa can only negotiate with China on the basis of regional blocks. And this is not something that is new. I've said it not once, not twice, times without number, that Africa must negotiate regionally as SADC, as East African Community, as ECOWAS, as the Maghreb, as Central Africa, and that therefore when we do so, we are able to negotiate for the benefit of our people. And if we don't do so, China may end up being our new colonizer. And the modern colonization is not about administration. You can have black faces or African faces in the political arena, but they are merely being manipulated. We don't want China to be the puppeteer and we the puppets. And many African countries must, in the nature of things, begin to interrogate the place of China in the economic and political arena. In a nutshell, that is the kind of approach that I intended to take, and of course, we would have engaged with the audience, and the audience would have teased out in a manner that is Zambia specific. In Zambia, for example, we know that we now have Chinese hawkers. Why should Chinese hawk? Why should Chinese be running pubs? There are areas which must be ring-fenced for the Zambians. And there are areas where we can engage with China in a meaningful way so that there is transfer of technology, so that we retain our dignity and sovereignty and we don't sacrifice it at the altar of short-term political gains. Let me say this, that the whole world is, in the nature of things, a global village, and that trade is the lifeblood of human interaction. China needs Africa, Africa needs China, but there is a way in which we need each other. There is a way in which you need each other in the manner that a horse rider needs a horse to ride it. For the time being, I hold the view that the horse rider is China. Africa is the horse to do China's bidding. My prescription is that we should enjoy a symbiotic relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship, and that can only be achieved if we define our agenda and our goals. It suggests to me that we have clearly defined what we want, and that is why we are allowing the Chinese to enter into areas which we could ourselves be engaged in. That is why we are allowing Chinese labor to come into the African continent in areas which could be preserved for young Africans. That is my quarrel. That is my concern. Am I right? I may not be right, but these ideas ought to be on the table of discussion for purpose of scrutiny, so that if my ideas are without merit, they will be demonstrated to be without merit by force of reason, not by reason of force. And to deny one an opportunity to put those ideas on the table of negotiation or discussion is intolerance at its most absurd. And I'm trying to look for a polite word to say a bad thing, which is not always easy. It is absurd.
Did you like or hate what you heard? Let us know in the comments below.